I have a confession to make. It was the first time today that I ran in about a week and a half. And I'm not gonna lie, it's because I've been despairing a little. I've been indulging in thoughts that have, taken over my purpose and that have been leading me off the track that I was called to be on. But as I was running sprints, I came up with a pretty good analogy I think I like to share with, how we pursue the things that we are passionate about and the talents that we have and how we utilize them. So I think there's three different modes of running. There's walking, which isn't really running, but there's running or jogging, and then there's interval sprints. And the way that I see it is that when we walk, we pursue something slowly, and that's when we're starting to gain an understanding of what we're doing and how we do it. And we're starting to develop our form. When we sprint, we focus our energy on short bursts, and we take a much deserved rest before we begin again. But when we run, we don't stop until we reach our destination, at least for most of us, I like to think. And the big difference between all of these is that when we walk, we gain an understanding of what we're doing and how to do it. When we run, we're simply trying to complete the task at hand. But when we sprint, we give our energy and our focus into that interval, and then we stop, and we maybe think about something. And I think that's a really good analogy on self-reflection and how we should pursue it throughout our lives, and the things that we do and how we utilize our talents, is that we should give our focus all throughout the interval, and then we need to stop and we need to think, how are we doing certain things, and then come to our conclusions, use our discernment, and we keep going. We do the next interval, and we repeat the whole process until we die. The main crux of this video is I want to talk about the dangers of overstimulation, the dangers of, constant self-gratification, and when we constantly choose to indulge ourselves. I'm going to open up with another confession. For about 3 years of my life, since I was 14 until 17, and even after 17 until 19, for about 5 years, I struggled with the marijuana addiction. And I just could not stop smoking. The main reason why I was smoking was because of the false peace that marijuana gave me. And I kept chasing that false peace until the day where it nearly led to my death. But that's a whole other story for a whole other day. Those 3 years, until I was 17, the only thing that I can remember is pain and suffering, self-gratification through the drugs, self-gratification of my own feelings, and self-gratification of just not choosing to help myself. Mainly the feeling of being comfortable, I was really comfortable with how I was suffering, and how that suffering made me feel. And I know that seems like I feel like that's a strange thing to a lot of people, is like, you're comfortable with your own suffering. Like, yeah, of course. It's really hard to change for the better. That's a pretty known thing about life, is that when we try to change for the good, and we try to maybe focus on our schoolwork, when we try to focus on sobriety, try to focus on our jobs, try to focus on our body, our spirituality, it's hard, because it takes consistency, it takes discipline for things that just aren't easy. And that self-improvement is, you hone yourself. In the Bible it says that the way that we hone ourselves, the way that God uses us as his tool, is he puts us through the fire. And he referred it to silversmithing. So when you take the piece of silver and you want to refine it, you put it through the fire, intense fire. And when you know that the silver is done, is when it's been through the fire enough times where you see your own reflection through the silver. that's supposed to be a metaphor of how God improves us, along with us improving ourselves using our free will for the better of ourselves and God, that we can start to see a reflection of God through the silver, or we see a reflection of God in ourselves. Sorry, mosquitoes are really annoying. But the main thing about those 3 years was I don't really remember a single moment where I stopped the noise that I kept putting in my own head. I couldn't stop overstimulating myself. I could not stop constantly drowning my thoughts. And every time that I wanted to reflect on myself, which I don't even know if I could say I even tried, it felt scary. And I say that because it's still scary now. And it's always going to be scary to, analyze yourself and think about why you are the way that you are. But it was until a day where I finally was by myself. But I was so far gone. I was so far gone in the self-stimulation and the constant noise that was in my head, where my consciousness was gone. It stopped speaking to me. That's the thing. It says in the Bible also that sin is in 3 stages. St. Gregory, I think, said this. He said the first stage is we get the temptation, and it's in our surroundings. The second stage is acknowledging it. The third stage is we finally consent to it, and we act upon it by our own selves and our own free will. We choose to act upon it. And I did that enough times. I reached the third stage enough times where I couldn't hear my consciousness anymore. And it always existed. It always was telling me those 3 years to stop doing what I was doing and to do something for the better of myself. But I had no reason to. I was too comfortable. Too comfortable in myself. I just had no reason to. And it got to the point where my conscience got quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter until it completely stopped speaking to me altogether. And it led to a point where I was going to take my life because I saw no hope. And I saw that there was no change. And as soon as I cemented in my heart that I was going to take my life, that's when I encountered the Lord. And he snapped me out of my delirium. He took me out of my own head. And he shut the noise off for a second. He did it for me. He said, my son, I love you. Don't do that. I have a purpose for you. And after that day where the Lord turned the noise off in my head, it was finally my turn to turn the noise off in my own head. But even after I found God, I still ignored it. But my consciousness grew louder. I finally heard it again. And I heard it for the next 2 years until now. And it never turned itself off. But through my own selfishness, I kept ignoring it. Until finally, the consequences of my sin hurt people that I love. And that's when I finally chose to drown the noise out entirely. And finally listen to myself and get clean. But already the damage was done. And God put me in a test. The dangers of constant self-gratification and constant overstimulation is that we don't get to self-reflect on our behaviors. Because maybe it's too scary for us. Maybe we're too slothful. And basically, that's the problem, is that our consciousness can just shut itself off slowly over time. And if you're watching this video and this resonates with you, I pray for you that your consciousness comes back louder than ever before, and the conviction comes back louder than ever before. And I hope that your heart fills with the grace and mercy of the Lord, because he loves you and he wants you back. Our Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In Jesus' name.